Okay, excuse me. All right, well, let's call the meeting to order then. I'd like to remind everybody this is meeting is being recorded and live stream, so please keep that in mind when you're making comments. Also, chat items are part of the public record. So before we begin, I'd like to recognize a few new committee members. I'm gonna mess up Joe's name, but Joe Glado, perhaps. I don't want to go too far further than that, but I think that's it. From City of Surprise, he's replacing Kristen Taylor. And we also have Philip Yavis from the City of Buckeye. So Joe or Philip, anything you guys there? Anything you'd like to say? Welcome.
Joe Gladio here. Thank you. Nothing. Just excited to be a part of the committee, guys, and learn to get to know you guys and be a part of this great thing.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Yeah, Philip Galvis here. No, thank you. Glad to be a part of the community. Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
All right, thanks, Philip. Okay, so also we had, if you haven't heard, we had like to congratulate our own Wendy Miller on her promotion as the federal grants administrator for the City of Phoenix. So Wendy, are you there? Congratulations. Anything you'd like to say?
Oh, wow, I am. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's a similar role, but a little bit more intense, and we'll be working on a grant management system soon.
Well, we appreciate everything you've done. We'll hopefully continue to see you and work with you. But really, I don't know if Dee Dee wants to say anything, but there's so much that Wendy's done, and it's just quite a great promotion for her. And we're happy for her, but we're sad at the same time. Having said that, it's a good opportunity to thank all of our committee members for all of your support of the Section 5310 evaluation process. A lot of effort, a lot of time, and we appreciate all of your time. It enables us to award these funds to support human service transportation in the region. So it's an important role, it's an important duty, and we appreciate your time. Okay, let's move on to introductions. So as we continually meet virtually, a roll call will be conducted for our introductions and all action items. Dee Dee from MAG will now conduct the roll call.
Thank you. When I call your name, if you can respond by saying here. Nina Arredondo.
Here.
Carolyn Ballard, Town of Florence. David Calloway, City of Mesa.
Here. Good morning.
Good morning. Vice Chair Dudley, City of Avondale.
Here.
Joan Freeman, City of Scottsdale. Joan Freeman, City of Scottsdale. I see her has logged on. I will go back. Okay. Joe, Gladio. I'm so sorry.
Gladio here.
Gladio. Okay. Autumn Groom, City of El Mirage. Nancy Jackson, City of Chandler.
Here.
And we did have Wendy Miller from the City of Phoenix. And we do have Chair Williams, Town of Gilbert. Philip Yabes, City of Buckeye.
Here.
Robert Yabes, City of
I'm back.
with
back.
coffee.
I'm here.
And Tom Young, Valley Metro.
Present.
Thank you. I'd like to go back. Joan Freeman, City of Scottsdale. City of Scottsdale. I see her logged on.
John, I see that you're logged on and you're unmuted, so you might be having some issues. If you want some technical assistance with that, you can just email me and I can help you with that.
Thank you, Chair Williams. We do have quorum.
Okay, thanks, Dee Dee. And okay, so everyone, before we start, let's remember to mute ourselves when not speaking. And when you're making a comment, please identify yourself first when speaking. Okay, so let's move on to our first item, which is call to the audience. There's an opportunity to provide that provides the public provide written comments to the committee on the items that are not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of MAG, or on items on the agenda but not for action. So also please note comments received for agenda items posted for action will be read at the time that item is heard. So having said all that, Dee Dee, do we have any comments from the public?
Chair Williams, we have not received any comments from the public.
Okay, so I guess we can move on to item number 3, which is approval of the EPDT ad hoc committee April 26th and 27th, 2022 meeting minutes. That seems like a long time ago, but I think we all remember it well. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes, or are there any changes? Okay, TD, have we received any comments from the public on this?
We have not received any comments.
Okay, all right. Hearing no comments, let's call for a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second or a first?
Chair, this
No,
is
our-
Vice Chair Dudley. I move for approval of the April 26th and 27th, 2022 MAG Elderly and Persons with Disability Ad Hoc Committee meeting minutes.
Second, Robert Yabes.
All right, thanks, guys. Any discussion? Hearing none. Dee Dee, will you do a roll call, please? And
Yes.
just say, what is it? Are we going with it? Yay or aye today? It's always a debate.
Yes. Nina Arredondo.
Yay.
Okay. David Calloway.
Yay.
Vice Chair made the motion. Joan Freeman.
Didi Johnson emailed me saying that she is in the meeting, but she cannot speak.
Okay. If she could put in chat.
The chat
Joan?
is disabled,
Oh, it is. Okay.
but she can email me.
Okay, if you can email, that'd be great. Joe Gladio. Joe.
Yay.
Thank you. Nancy Jackson.
Yay.
Wendy Miller. Wendy Miller.
Yay.
Chair Williams.
Yay.
Philip Yabes.
Yay.
And Robert Yabes made the second the motion. Tom Young. Tom Young.
Yes.
Thank you. Chair Williams, the motion passed.
Okay, motion passes. Let's move on to our next item, which is item 4, updates from the MAG sub-regional mobility managers. The sub-regional mobility managers support coordination efforts federally required to receive Section 5310 funding. They also provide input into the development of projects and offer workshops and trainings for regional Section 5310 sub-recipients. TD, can you provide an introduction of the mobility managers, please?
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. The sub-regional mobility managers are seen as our community liaisons who support the required coordination efforts by developing workshops and trainings for our Section 53 sub-recipients. The mobility managers have facilitated trainings and workshops throughout the year. Quite interestingly, we added a new training on de-escalation last year that had over 50 participants in the previous year. And we had the same training this year, and we had over 80 participants. So our mobility, we are very grateful for the support of our mobility managers and their support of our sub-recipients. Our mobility managers will provide a brief overview of the projects. And I would like to first introduce Mark Butterbosch, who is the Vice President of Operations at Gompers. Is Mark online?
Really, there are a few phone numbers. I don't know if Mark is doing one of them, but other than that, I don't see Mark as an attendee.
Okay. Mark, if you're online, we will go ahead and go to the next Sub-Region Mobility Manager, and we will come back to you. I'd like to introduce Justin McGregor, who is the Facilities and Mobility Innovation Managers at STARS. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee Dee. So, like Dee Dee said, I'm the Facilities and Mobility Innovation Manager for STARS. The workshops I've been working on is driver safety and vehicle maintenance. With these workshops, I field a lot of questions for both of the workshops. It's been a really good response from our subrecipients with their questions. I've also gone out to subrecipients' locations to actually assist them with their fleet maintenance and their fleet management program on sites with them. Interestingly enough, I actually received a call from Allentown Rescue Mission in Pennsylvania looking for both driver safety and vehicle maintenance questions to be answered. So we could see how much our information is actually getting out to other states as well, which is really flattering. So any questions?
Chair, Vice Chair, this is Wendy Miller. I just wanted to congratulate Justin. Well done. We'd love to see that it's spreading throughout the country, and we know you do a great job, but you're right, to get feedback like that is tremendous. And as the designated recipient, we can't also thank you enough for the assistance that you're providing to subrecipients. And we're seeing some of those results in the submittals for the annual reporting, which is very, very valuable and helpful to us. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Are there any other further questions? Okay. Next, thank you, Justin, for your update. Next, I'd like to introduce Billy Parker, who is an Executive Director with Chandler Gilbert ARC. Thank you, Billy.
Thank you, Dee Dee, and thanks, Chair and members of the committee. Always appreciate the opportunity to come and talk a little bit about what's been going on with us in mobility management. I've been a sub-regional mobility manager for 8 years. Executive Director of Chandler Gilbert ARC since 2013. And in terms of some of the sort of projects and trainings that I've been working on, really, I used to do a lot of training in vehicle sharing, and COVID came along, and I kind of made a shift in that and started really more of a sort of guided discussion process. And I call it It's a Moving Target, because really what it deals with is I kind of wait and see what the kind of current issues are that are going on with providers that relate really to transportation and to operations and things like that. So as I've done the trainings throughout the course of the last year, they kind of deal with things like COVID protocol, masking, vaccines, approvals, different things like that, and how all that sort of relates to transportation. So moving forward, I actually have a couple of trainings coming up this month. I'm doing another It's a Moving Target on the 22nd, and we're going to talk about personnel and hiring and retention. And that's the first half. And then the second half, we were in a mobility managers meeting just a week or so ago, and Dee Dee was mentioning that some people are having challenges with preventative maintenance proposals or not submitting them at all because they just don't know enough about it, or they don't know anything about it. So I'm actually going to dedicate a part of that training to our experience as an agency with preventative maintenance proposals, and actually bringing our director of finance in to kind of come and talk about her process for invoicing and different things like that. So kind of excited about that training coming up. I think it's going to be a lot of information in like an hour and a half or 2 hours. So we'll see how that goes. One of the other trainings that I do, it's also the vehicle sharing training, and I call that one "Let Me Out of This Box." And it really deals not just with Chandler Gilbert Ark's process for vehicle sharing, but other strategies for vehicle sharing and other projects. We've been, I've spoken about this previously, and that this project kind of continues the whole idea of transportation brokerages, the potential for possibly joint ownership of vehicles, and kind of really just exploring a lot of those different options. And then also vehicle disposals, which is another issue that I've sort of spoken about to our team, and in how that can really tend to be a challenge. And from in the spirit of coordinated mobility, I feel like it really shouldn't be. So one of the things I've spoken to Dee Dee and Hezekiah about, and we'll speak some more about as a potential new project too, is to maybe create some kind of a standard operating procedure that providers that are interested in vehicle disposals can sort of use, that's really guided by the rules that are put forth by the city of Phoenix, and which are also guided by ADOT too, and kind of maybe look at that as a project moving forward. So that's kind of some of the stuff that's going on. We also have a consultant that we've been working with for the last couple of weeks that we actually received some American Rescue Plan funding, and brought a consultant in to come and work at our organization. It's actually his last day today. And there's been a lot of really insightful stuff about our program that will really sort of resonate with how our transportation works too, especially relating to community integrated employment and things like that. So really curious to sort of implement some of those things, both within the agency and within the training that the trainings that I provide moving forward. So that's like a pretty quick nutshell of what I've been working on, but I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Thank you, Billy, for that really brief update. Are there any questions? I think
Chair, Vice Chair Dee Dee, this is Wendy again. As always, Billy, very, very impressive, and having that opportunity to have that consultant and incorporating those changes is really going to be valuable, that you're sharing that with the other agencies, and I'm interested in learning more. That's very exciting.
Awesome. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy. I'd like to introduce our next sub-region mobility manager. It's Eric Pinnock. He is the Fleet and Facilities Manager at TCH. Eric?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Dee Dee. Thank you, members of the chair. I am the newest mobility manager. I'm just starting my second year. I've been the Fleet and Facilities Manager now for a little over a year here at TCH. The trainings and workshops that I've been developing this year are called Fleet Management and Data Reporting, and also Enhancing Mobility through Technology. Fleet Management and Data Reporting focuses on some tips and best practices that we use with recommendations from the city of Phoenix to help with all of the grant reporting and the reimbursement process, and also some tips for just general fleet management. The workshop in Enhancing Mobility through Technology focuses on some various hardware and software devices that can be used to make the process easier for both staff and management. I've been working with other local nonprofits um, in the area to dispose of some of our older ADOT grant vehicles. I've been in contact with a few nonprofits recently who are interested in becoming subrecipients, and not only am I helping them with questions about the application process, but I'm also working with them to potentially dispose some of our older fleet until they are able to go through that process and become grant subrecipients. The two workshops are very new, and we've received lots of feedback, and I'm excited to see how those develop as time goes on. That's a brief overview of what we've been working on here at TCH.
Thank you, Eric. And again, that was a very brief overview of the many trainings and workshops that you have provided. Are there any questions from the committee? Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Mark, are you on the line? Just wanted to check to see. Okay. I would like to thank all of our sub-region mobility managers. They are truly our community liaisons. They provide us information and feedback of what our stakeholders are concerned about. They provide trainings. They offer the resources at their own agencies. They have the support of their agencies to provide that support for our workshops and trainings. Definitely vehicle disposal is one of the issues that some of the agencies are seeing. Also, hiring and retaining staff. I think we heard a lot about that in our interview last year. So they have been very accommodating. If you see our training calendar, there's a big push for a lot of training and workshops this month and next month. So I also like to thank Ezekias for his support of the sub-region mobility managers. So thank you, Chair and members of the committee.
Thanks, Dee Dee, and thanks everyone. Really nice presentations and information. Appreciate all that you do. So this item is for information only and discussion. So are there any comments or further comments and questions from the committee on this item? Okay. If not, thanks everybody for your updates and your great work. It's always nice to hear what's happening out there and what's really going on out there. So we appreciate everything you do and for you coming and attending and giving us your updates. All right, so let's go on to item number 5, which is an overview of the anticipated revisions to the urban area boundaries. The Section 5310 program is a formula-based program where boundaries and apportionments are determined by population. Our current boundary map was determined by the 2010 census, and in 2020, another census count was conducted. Today, we have Scott Wilkin with us, who is the Senior Planning Project Manager for MAG Regional Analytics Division. So, he'll give us an overview of the anticipated new urban area boundary. Scott, are you available? Is Scott with us here?
Yes.
Hey, Scott.
Hi, how's it going? Next slide, I guess. So Dee Dee asked me to give you an overview of what we're seeing in the new rules for urban areas. In the past, there was a distinction between urbanized areas and urban clusters. Urbanized areas were the larger areas and urban clusters were generally smaller. And they're getting rid of that distinction. Everything will be either an urban area or not. They're changing the process for how they determine what is an urban area. Instead of using population, they're going to use housing units per square mile. And the way they've configured it, it shouldn't be too big of a change. They've used the calculation of using persons per household to approximate how many housing units would be about the equivalent. But the benefit to using housing units instead of population is that, in theory, the Census Bureau might be able to update the urban area boundaries between decennial censuses instead of having to wait until the next census. When they're using population, the only thing they could do is wait for the next decennial census to update the boundaries. But since they maintain a housing unit list throughout the decade, they could theoretically make updates to the boundaries as needed between decennial censuses. Another thing that we're seeing is that it looks like they're essentially ignoring the existing urbanized area boundaries. So the 2010 boundaries that you're familiar with, they're kind of wiping those off and wiping those away and starting from scratch with the new criteria. And I'll show you that in a little bit. One of the big things that they're using is commuting patterns. And they're going to use commuting patterns to either separate new urban areas or maintain separated urbanized areas from the past to the new urban areas. If an area is largely self-contained, if their residents mostly work in that same area, then that could be considered its own urban area. But if you've got an area that's sending most of their workers to a neighboring, probably larger urban area, then most likely you're going to see those areas combined into one. I think the presentation is on the website, so if you want to see all of the criteria, the link there is on the next to last bullet, and we expect the boundaries to be released next month. So if we go to the next slide, I can show you a few maps that we've put together. This is what you're all familiar with, the existing 2010 urbanized areas, with Phoenix Mesa there in purple, and then Avondale Goodyear in orange. Next slide. And this is what we're estimating for the 2020 urban areas. We added the purple line there to show you where the Avondale Goodyear boundary was, but what we expect is that Avondale Goodyear and Phoenix Mesa will be combined into one urban area. There are a number of other smaller urban areas that we expect to be created: Florence, Maricopa, Wickenburg, Festival, Estrella. And our expectation is that Vistancia and Buckeye are close enough to the Avondale Goodyear or I guess now Phoenix Mesa area that they'll be incorporated into that one. But the rest of those that I just named are far enough away that they should be their own urban areas, smaller urban areas. Next slide. And then this is a little wider view of the two county area, basically adding Coolidge, Arizona City, Eloy. We think those will be separate urban areas, and then Casa Grande will continue to be its own urban area. All the red shapes on there are areas that we think are probably not big enough to become urban areas, but they meet some of the criteria. But we will find out about that in about a month. I think that's my last substantive slides. So let's go to the next one, and I can answer any questions if you have them.
Thanks, Scott. I did have a question. I'm sure it's in when you dig further, but I'm interested in, I mean, this is quite a change. So did they give you any kind of guidance on how they're going to ascertain commuting patterns, or like how does that assessed, I guess?
Yeah, it's a great question. They're using, and I can't remember what this stands for, the LEHD local. It's a census program that shows where people live and where they work, and it has the commuting patterns baked right into it. So they're relying on that. Local housing employment dynamics. LEHD. Local Employment Housing Dynamics.
Thanks. One other thing that stood out to me in that was using housing units is it'll be interesting to kind of see how they, utilize things like condos or townhomes or apartments and how they kind of use that. I'm sure they use every single family housing unit has, 2.5 or 3 or whatever it is, residents, but I wonder how they do apartments. So that'll be kind of fascinating to keep an eye on, I think, for us. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, they can separate out persons per household by unit type. So it wouldn't just be a blanket 2.5 or 2.3 or whatever it is across the entire country. The apartments and condos generally are closer to less than 2, and single family units are about 2.5 or so. And so that's that was factored into that as well, I think. So in the end, it shouldn't be too big of a change. There are some areas that will be more affected than others, but in our region, I don't think we're going to see a problem with that calculation.
Okay. So I gather this is good news in your opinion then, for us. It sounds like it's going to be more responsive and to address high growth areas like Phoenix. So
if they're able to go forward with the idea of updating the boundaries between decennial censuses, I think that is a positive move. Otherwise, I don't know if it's good or bad. It's I don't know that there was a reason for the 2 separate urbanized areas the last decade, and so having those combined into one may make sense, but then some of those communities might not have the same access to funding. All of that is outside of my purview. I'll defer to Dee Dee on any of that, but overall I think it's fine and it all makes sense, but I don't know if I'd say it's good.
Sure. All right, that's the questions from me. Anybody else? This is an item that is information and discussion only, so any other comments or questions from the committee?
Chair, this is Wendy Miller. The only, I think biggest posing question, which is nobody quite knows, is kind of how they did it in the 2010 census, is how they split out the funding. And last time we created some newer urban areas, but we split the same amount of funding. So it just kind of remains to be seen with them increasing the number of small urban areas. Are they going to be competing again for that pot of money that used to go to Avondale? It'd just be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, great points. Anybody else? Okay, Scott, thanks so much for your time and the overview. We really appreciate that. Hopefully you can keep us updated as these things kind of evolve.
Once we have the final boundaries, I'll make sure to get those to Dee Dee and Ezekias.
Okay, thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Chair, I have a couple comments.
Sure.
Thank you, Scott, for this. We have been in discussion with Scott to see what the anticipated movement may be, but definitely we will definitely reach out as recommended by FTA to those communities that may be incorporated into our service boundary area. So we are definitely keeping on top of this. We don't anticipate any changes to apportionment in the next year. I think after they do the finalized smooth boundary, then they have to go back and they have to have further discussion. But we want to stay ahead of the changes that may take place in the coming year. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dee Dee. That's helpful, the context. Okay, so I guess we're ready to move on to number 6 then. Item number 6 is review of the FY22 Section 5310 Enhanced Mobility of Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Program for the Phoenix Mesa urbanized area. Dee Dee now will provide a review of the 2022 Section 5310 application process. She will also review any committee comments for points of consideration as we go into the next application process. Go ahead, Dee Dee. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Chair and members of the committee. We greatly appreciate your time that you take for this application process for Section 5310. It is since 2014, we've taken the Section 5310 application process and the evaluation process regionally, and that shows that we have expended all of our funding every year, and we've actually exceeded the request of the funding apportionment we've had. Next slide. Oh, I know we have a couple of new members here, and I just want to give an overview of the application. The Section 5310 application is a federal awards program. Eligible applicants are private nonprofit organizations, and those are the majority of the subrecipients that we have now. Public agencies where no viable private nonprofit organizations are available, and tribal governments. Eligible populations are agencies serving older adults age 65 and older, and agencies serving persons with disabilities. Funding apportionments, not less than 55 of the funding are to go to traditional capital requests, and the remaining 45 to other capital and operating, less than 10% administration. In our last application process in 2020, if I can go to the next slide. Just to review, at this point, this is our current service area. Any agencies within the blue area that provides 51% of their services would apply for 5310 funding through our process. Everybody outside of that is under, they apply to ADOT, who coordinates and programs the Section 5310 application process. This year, ADOT is on a 2-year process where they have an application, a call for application every other year. So this is the year that they would have a call for applications for operating and capital projects. In 2022, we had 5.1 million in apportionment, and this is quite a jump from the previous year, where we have 3.1, which also included $1 million under the ARPA and CRISA funding. So a total 4.1, but for the Section 5310 program, that is 3.1. So that is quite an increase. And it was good that we had the increase in funding, because we also saw, unfortunately, an increase in procurements of vehicles. So we did have some carry forward funding, but that actually was expended due to the cost of the vehicles. The contracts went out in October, and as I noted, there had been a couple of adjustments to the award amounts to accommodate for the increase in vehicle procurement. I'd like to hand this over to Wendy Miller, as a DR, who can provide some additional information on the work her and her staff did on behalf of the program to get our contracts out. Wendy.
Thank you, Dee Dee. Sorry about that. We are in the process of actually getting to ordering day. So it has taken quite a bit to get here. FTA and all of the delays in COVID and supply chains and everything has made it a little bit difficult, and the cost increases. So ADOT is the agency that we buy off of their statewide contracts to purchase vehicles. So we have to go along with what ADOT has procured for the 5310 vehicles. And when the contracts were originally procured, and I will separate this in, there's kind of two different waves, one with the ADA vehicles, which is the cutaways, and the transits with lift and minivans with ramp. So the ADA accommodating vehicles are providing services in that regard. That's on one contract, and our current contractor for that is Creative Bus. So when you're procuring an FTA contract at a particular price, And then all of a sudden there's big price increases like what happened due to COVID and the supply chain issues. We can't just continue to use that contract without doing a justification and ensuring that the price is still reasonable, etc. And if the contract that you have states that you can only have a certain percentage increase, you have to go back out and re-procure those contracts. We were very fortunate that our contract did not have that such clause. So we did a price evaluation on the increases, and we were able to continue to use those contracts after adopting the new price increases into our contract. So that being said, we are moving forward with all the ADA contract purchases. We're doing minivans with ramp on Friday. Even though there are very few chassis available, our contractor did provide some that they have an opportunity to use a different contract from California that was already kind of, the specs were already determined. And if those vehicles work for the 5310s, they can order them and probably get them sooner. So we're talking about that on Friday. On Tuesday, we're doing cutaways and transits. So we're able to move forward with those. Now, on the non-ADA side, which is our passenger vans and our minivans, the passenger vans, we do have a contract for those, or ADOT has a contract where those vehicles could be purchased. However, General Motors, Chevy, is not allocating chassis to government contracts at this time for this next year. So we have no passenger van availability to even buy anything that meets that criteria. And the other options are not Buy America compliant that we could possibly look to. And then finally, the standard minivans, those have been in a tough situation for several years where Buy America compliant minivans haven't been available. Our ADOT's contract under the last waiver had expired, and so they had to get new contracts, and then a Buy America waiver was coming out, and the Buy America waiver is a partial waiver only that only waives the domestic content percentage. So we only have two options available, and neither of those vehicles are on contract with ADOT. So, and there's a Honda Odyssey available or a Toyota Sienna hybrid, and those hybrids, ADOT wasn't, they have Toyota Siennas, but not the hybrid version on their contract. So if they were to get those, it would have to be re-procured. And then the Honda Odyssey, they had tried to get those on contract, but Honda wasn't willing to sign the paperwork that's required by FTA. So to give you that long drawn out explanation, to just basically say, we still do not have any non-ADA vehicles for our subrecipients to purchase. And it's kind of a waiting game to see what they're going to allow us to do differently. There are very, very few vehicles that are either manufactured in the US or meet the engine. I guess the final engine has to be here. There's very few vehicles that would work for this program that meet that designation. And if they do, we don't have them on contract. So, and it will be an effort to figure out if they would even sign a contract with us agreeing to meet the FTA requirements. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have. It's kind of complicated and a little frustrating, but we're doing our best to try to figure out alternatives to provide vehicles. One other comment I wanted to let you know was that ADOT had canceled some of their contracts. Instead of working with them and trying to reissue, give additional federal funding to buy the more expensive vehicles, they didn't have that kind of excess and they were just canceling contracts and awards and just rolling that into the next process. Phoenix has not done that yet, but it is a consideration that we might have to think of now that we are kind of out of funding until the next round of apportionments. So that's where we're at.
Chair, may I add a couple of comments?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, Chair, members of the committee, thank you. Thank you, Wendy, for that update. I just wanted to reiterate that Wendy and her staff at Phoenix have been working tirelessly on this issue. We are grateful that they included MAC staff to help with the dialogue. I just wanted to say, Wendy has worked on this over the summer, and as she noted, that ADOT did start counseling some contracts, but we are so thankful that Wendy has the subrecipients at heart. She has worked tirelessly to fulfill these contracts. So I just want to really thank Wendy and her staff for all of your effort. This is really time consuming, but they went ahead and they went forward with helping our agencies out. They've met with them, they've communicated with them. We have been a part of that process. So thank you so much.
Yeah, agreed. Tremendous amount of work. Thanks, Wendy. And thanks for the update. We'll see how this plays out. So appreciate that update. So this item is for information and discussion. Oh, where are we at? Sorry, Dee Dee.
Okay, and next slide. Yeah, so every year the committee has an opportunity, no problem. Every year the committee has an opportunity to discuss the past evaluation process, and we take the time to review committee comments. Well, it took us a short 9 years to finally get an evaluation process in a format that is easier for the committee and easier for staff. I would like to thank MAC staff as a KIS for providing us with our scoring sheet, our rubric, kind of bringing me into the 21st century with all of this. And thankfully, we didn't have that many items for considerations, but I just wanted to review a couple of them. The committee's consensus was to continue with the EPDT meeting virtually. I believe that it is a consensus of the chair and vice chair and the committee members, and also to continue to have the applicant interview virtually. I know the committee had mentioned that since the interviews are only 15 minutes, and to have these nonprofit agencies who are providing services and are on the front line to come in and to travel into downtown Phoenix for a 15-minute interview was a time efficient. So the consensus was to continue to have the meeting and the interview virtually. A couple comments, and one that Billy brought up, and also Wendy, is that the committee had noticed last year that there were kind of a wide variety of ranges for requests for preventive maintenance. And so we looked at that, and we brought that back to our sub-regional mobility managers. And as Billy said, we are now going to provide some additional support to our potential applicants if they are going to request for preventive maintenance. Actually, Billy and Justin both said they would integrate that topic into their presentations. So we did take that to heart from the comments from the committee, and we will now include that guidance and add additional guidance for preventive maintenance. Also, a comment from the committee for the applicant interview, we do forward pertinent information of what to expect when a subrecipient comes in for their 15-minute interview to the committee, such as providing information regarding your organization, your project request, the amount and the need, and then there's additional time for the committee to ask questions. The committee last year noted through this process that there were two really good organizations that had great interviews, that they were concise, they were to the point. And the two agencies were the Opportunity Tree and Benavia. We are going to reach out to the Opportunity Tree and Benavia to ask them if they can provide some best practices to our potential applicants. And we're going to hopefully they can provide some guidance on how to do an effective agency interview. Again, these are only 15 minutes where an agency comes in and has to make their point of why there is a need. We all know all of our agencies are in need, but especially for this program, the need for moving forward for awarding. So we definitely we listen to the committee's comments. I reviewed the minutes, but these are some of the things that were highlighted that to move forward on for the next application process. Again, this is for information discussion. Is there any comments? And I'm so proud of MAG and City of Phoenix staff and the committee. We have debriefed after every application process to ensure that this process goes smooth. We want to provide as much support to the committee members. We know you have the difficult task of doing the evaluation review of all of the applications. And, sometimes we get over 40 project requests. So we want to provide as much support to you. This concludes my presentation. I'm open for any questions.
Okay, thanks, Dee Dee. Doesn't sound like there's any questions at this point, but as Dee Dee mentioned, this is information discussion only. And so really appreciate that presentation. I think this was item 6, correct? And
If there was, yes, we had a numbering.
yeah, I'm not seeing 7 on the agenda, so maybe I skipped that and I see 8. I go from 6 to 8, so I just want to make sure we're on the right
We are in
item.
7.
We are on 7. Okay. So we'll move on now to number 8, which is overview of the FY23 FTA Section 5310 Enhanced Mobility of Seniors and Persons with Disabilities Program, the application process for the Phoenix Mesa UZA. Dee Dee will again provide us with an overview of the 2023 selection or section application process. She'll review the tentative committee schedule, and Dee Dee and Wendy will provide some information on any federal updates to the Section 5310 program. So again, this item is for information discussion and possible approval after the presentation. So Dee Dee, are you ready for this one?
I'm ready. Thank you, Chair.
Always ready. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Again, we do appreciate your time and expertise for this 2023 Section 5310 evaluation process. Today, I'll review the tentative 2023 committee schedule, and Wendy and I will update you on any federal changes. As Chair Nathan Williams said, this item is for information discussion and possible action. Next slide. I'd first like to review the committee schedule. The committee schedule will follow the same timeline as we did with last year, with all meetings being virtual, including the 2-day interview process. We have just updated the dates to the 2023 dates, but this again just follows the same application process. In January, we'll meet, we'll approve the application evaluation process, and I will go over more of the details on that. On March 15th, the applications will be distributed, and MAG staff will provide the evaluation training. We anticipate the application to be released in the end of January, and then the due date would be at the end of February. MAG and the City of Phoenix will have a 2-week internal review process where we review the applications to ensure they meet federal eligible requirements and regional threshold. That ensures that when you receive the applications in March, that all of the applications are eligible to move forward through the application process. In April, we do have a 2-day committee meeting, and that will include the agency interviews. We usually have the capital requests on the first day and then operating requests on the second day. And then on the second day, we have the deliberation of developing the priority listing based on rankings. The interview process is worth 15 points. And again, thank you. This has been such a smooth process. Last year, we've kind of got it down. So we really appreciate the committee's feedback and the development of the whole process. And then as we are meeting here in November, we will meet again the next year in November to debrief on the previous application process and also to update on any federal changes. We don't anticipate any changes since under the new legislative bill, this is a 5-year process, which I believe takes us into 2025, but we always want to make sure we bring you the latest information. Are there any questions at this point? Okay, I would like to move on. As always, we continue to improve our process. And MAG and the City of Phoenix staff also provide post-award support to our subrecipients, including ensuring that they meet compliancy and they submit their milestone report on a timely basis. This also includes the timely expenditure of funds and closing of project and awards after completion. Unfortunately, we've had some issues on the timely expenditure of funding and the closing of awards. I'd like to now call Wendy Miller to help explain what they're experiencing in this arena.
Thank you, Dee Dee, Chair, Vice Chair. Through our recent triennial review process, we dug pretty deep into our programs with the auditors. And one of the things that they were asking us to provide is the details on when you have an award issued, a new award issued, how much excess other funds do they have? So they were asking for us in every single agreement that we issued to list out their entire commitment, our commitment to them with federal funds, their commitment, and to try to incorporate that into an agreement was a very difficult thing. So what we agreed to do was to issue that report in an addendum when we do submit a new agreement. And what that allowed us to do was to do a complete review of every subrecipient as we're issuing those new contracts or agreements. And through COVID, we did have some shutdowns and people were having a little bit more difficulty spending down funds. And we said, hey, we understand that's okay. If your vehicles are not on the road, your preventive maintenance is going to go way down. We understand that. That's fine. What we asked our subrecipients to do was to estimate out the delta. If you haven't spent these funds down this year, that's fine. But when you ask the next year, reduce your ask by what you believe is needed. And I think that people were not necessarily as astute at maybe projecting what they were going to spend, not knowing that COVID was going to last as long as it did. But FTA has asked us to please not extend future agreements if somebody has that amount of excess funds. Now, for our program, we give out a year of funding at a time. And when we were doing some reviews, we found that there was some agencies that had almost 2.5 years of preventive maintenance stacked up with, or 1.5 with a new year coming on board. And we asked all of those agencies that had that situation to please, before we'd execute the agreement, to please give us a detailed explanation, much like all the cities do at quarterly report time for their NPRs, to give explanations and details. We are asking for the same thing on the financial end of things from our 5310s. And so as part of this next year's process, we're going to complete that evaluation during the 2-week process. And if there is folks who still haven't expended funds and are still asking for the same amount every year, and that is not coming down, we will probably have to recommend to the committee that we not execute that agreement at this time, and that they should spend down more of their funding before they request new funds. So we're kind of trying to work out the best way to do that and the gauge for that. But FTA's recommendation was, no more than 2 years worth of funding, but that's on any given grant project. These that are only anticipated to be 1 year of funding, I was thinking like maybe like 1.5 years, or, ensuring that they have enough funding to get them through the end of the year and to the next award, but not too much more than that based on past expenditures. And that also brings up our point when we were looking at the amount of funding that people were requesting for preventive maintenance for maybe smaller fleets, and what is the, is that appropriate? Or, we're just trying to look and see, does, is what they're asking for make sense, and how much is too much over time to have not spent down. So we will be giving you reports on that. And if something is extremely egregious, we would likely recommend to the committee to potentially not award that at this time, not for necessarily, that they're an eligible project and they're not, not eligible, but it's not prudent based on FTA requirements to issue that much funding to one recipient or subrecipient. Did I explain that okay, Dee Dee?
Yes, I think you did explain that correctly. So I just want to summarize that Phoenix's request, we would like to help support Wendy in her role, and it has a designated recipient. And we are very thankful that Wendy is coming forward to the committee with this information, has a DR. They can already put processes in place, but we appreciate you going through the process and coming to the committee. So the request at this time is for Phoenix staff to review older grants during our 2-week internal process, and we always come back to the committee with our results of our review, whether they meet federal eligibility or regional threshold. Phoenix staff will provide guidance on those applicants with an excessive amount of funding for the same project that has not been spent down, that is greater than 1 year's worth of funding, and to not recommend, and through that process, not recommending that the applicant not move forward until past expenditures have been spent down. Did I explain that correctly?
You did, excellent. And you also brought in the other component that I forgot to mention, that it was for same projects. So this is stacked preventative maintenance funding or volunteer driver program funding or something to that nature. If they have not spent their vehicle funds and they have a year or so of preventative maintenance, that does not preclude them from getting more funding. It is the same project where they have stacked funding.
Definitely. And based on the recommendation, staff will update all necessary documents, including the handbook, the application, and our proposal training workshops. We will get that information out there. Is there any comments, any discussion? We are looking for consensus for this item.
Chair, this is the vice chair. Sorry, I'm down, I'm a little down on under the weather today, but this actually makes perfect sense. So again, I don't think you guys are looking at somebody who's just like barely eking out. I think we're looking at some egregious maybe users with, what do we say, like 2 years worth of funding that they have allocated. And it sounds like you guys already have a process in place to make sure that you're contacting those that are kind of in this situation and then letting them exactly know what the issue is. And again, I'm going to miss you, Wendy, because this is the exact same thing that we are looking for from a designated recipient, to keep us clear of the feds. This is the exact same thing. So I am definitely in favor of this.
Thank you, Matt. And I just wanted to say, I'm not going anywhere. My role still oversees this program.
Yeah, I'll be calling you.
and we have not exactly delineated out how my old position, when we hire for it, etc., how split out it's going to be. But I am here on the committee and part of this for at least this next process, if not longer. We'll keep you posted if anything changes, but our goal is to keep this consistent, and I will still have a role to play if it isn't the committee member, or it is definitely overseeing it and providing guidance and support to the staff that will.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thanks, Wendy. And thanks, Dee Dee, too. Yeah, you're right. We need to make sure that we have these timely expenditures of these funds, and we do want to keep clear of the auditors. So I think this is a good practice.
Yep, this is Nate. I agree with Matt and what everything you said here. I mean, it's very proactive and we appreciate that. So I'm all in favor. Anybody else have any discussion on the item?
Chairman William, this is Nancy with the City of Chandler. I just had a quick question, either for Dee Dee or Wendy. So is it my understanding that those who have not spent down their money, they're not going to get to the evaluation process to us? Like, we're not going to need to know who has spent down and who hasn't, right? You're going to weed those out before they get to the evaluation committee?
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Thank you, Nancy. Yes, definitely we will weed those out, and on March, when you receive the applications, we will ensure that all of the applications that you are reviewing meet federal eligibility and regional criteria. Yeah, yes, we will take it upon ourselves to do all of that submit before you, the committee, receive those applications, so you don't have to worry about that.
And per previous practice, sorry, this is Wendy. Per our previous practice, the committee, for transparency purposes, we will report on that we received X amount of applications and describe the situation. And we will say, I can't remember if Dee Dee actually provides the list of the applicants who did not move forward, but you would know these were not eligible, these had excess funding. You will get a report on it, but you won't have to review those if you're agreeing and consenting with that review.
One last question. Again, this is Nancy. Sorry. So that communication that's going on with those subrecipients, has it been well received? Like, you're notifying them, like, hey, we need this plan. We need to know how you're going to spend it down. Otherwise, you're not going to be funded for this same project. Has that been well received?
Well, I think a lot of folks just kind of were remiss in submitting their reimbursements. So we asked them to submit any and all reimbursements within a period of time, and a lot of them did and came into compliance almost immediately after submitting those reimbursements. There was a couple people that were doing an evaluation on their specific, like, CRISA funds, that they needed to double check with their accountant, their payroll protection program funding, and making sure that they weren't double dipping, which is a requirement. So there was good explanations and reasons for that. For the ones that had excess funding, they're typically not that super responsive. So I don't know if it was received well or not, but those that did not provide that, we still have one agency that hasn't been cleared to sign a new contract with last year's funding because they haven't presented us with an explanation for the lack of expenditures. I mean, and we understood the COVID issue and the not spending down preventive maintenance funds, particularly during that time, but then they continued to ask for a lot of money and we continued to give it. And we just need to make sure that we're having those review periods and points to make sure. So we now have a report that my finance team prints out and lets us know before that happens. So we would be looking and reviewing these ahead of time. We just did it at annual reporting time in October and gave them that feedback. So we're doing it at several points throughout the year so that it isn't a surprise when it comes time. They already know that they need to submit this information. So I think that the feedback we received is that it's fair and it kind of lit a fire under what we were needing people to do. So it was helpful all around.
I would also like to add that we are copied on the correspondence, and a majority of the subrecipients they are aware. They do respond quite in a timely manner. There have been a couple of agencies that haven't responded. MAG, meaning Ezekias, it does take the extra effort to make phone calls, send emails, to reach out to ensure that they were aware of the correspondence. And we also haven't received feedback from just a few applicants. So we do follow up both with Phoenix and MAG staff.
Right. And part of the information that we provide the committee is part of the scoring process. The designated recipient has I think it's 5 points, or I can't remember the points. I'm not looking at the screen, but there is a part where we score them on effectively managing their grants in past. So part of that score is not only expenditure of funds, which we will, provide a score related to this. We're adding that as a different way of evaluating them. In addition to, we've had a very small handful of folks who continually don't respect the milestone progress report deadlines. I still have a couple people that have items missing for reporting that was due on October 15th, which we're in turn required to submit all that to FTA by the end of October. And we do have missing information from a very small number of subrecipients, excuse me. And you will see the impact on the scoring for those agencies if they're applying for new funds.
Yeah, this is Nate. Thanks, Nancy, for those questions. Those are great questions and conversation to have. I mean, I know Dee Dee and Wendy want to make sure we're not reviewing things that we shouldn't be. So that's a great clarification. Any other questions from the committee on this item? So Dee Dee, would I be correct? This item is for discussion, information, and possible approval. Are we at the motion to approve at this point, or where are we on the item?
Chair and members of the committee, if there are no other questions regarding this, definitely if this does move forward, we will provide it information, and we do have the wording from the FDA guidelines to include into the handbook. But to summarize discussion today, and the committee's consensus is to approve the committee schedule and include the guidelines for unspent funding into the application process, to include into the 2-week internal review process with staff reporting results of projects not to move forward due to not meeting guidelines of not expending funding in a timely manner, not meeting guidelines of not timely expenditures of federal funds.
Great, thanks, Dee Dee. Do we have a motion from committee to approve the recommendations?
I'm asking for a motion recommending approval.
Thanks, Robert.
As Dee Dee said, I can't repeat it, but
As Dee Dee said, yep.
As
Dee Dee
summarized.
said.
yes, Dee Dee summarized. I will.
And this is the vice chair. I second that motion, what Robert said.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Okay, Dee Dee, will you conduct a roll call, please?
Definitely, I will read the names, and if you can respond by yea or nay regarding the motion. Nina Arredondo.
Yay.
David Calloway.
Yay.
Vice Chair seconded. Joan Freeman.
Yay.
Awesome. Joe Letadue.
Yay.
Thank you. Nancy Jackson.
Yay.
Wendy Miller.
I'm not even sure if it's appropriate for me to
Oh.
do that. So why don't you put me down as an abstention on that one? Thanks, Dee Dee.
Thank you. Thank you for that reminder. Chair Williams.
Yay for me, thanks.
Philip Galvis.
Yay.
Robert Galvis made the motion. Tom Young. Tom Young.
Out of the meeting.
Pardon?
Tom Young seems to have dropped out of the meeting.
Okay. Chair Williams, the motion passes.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. Motion passes. Let's move on to our next item, which is requests for future agenda items. Are there any other requested topics or issues of interest to consider from committee members for future agenda items? Let's see, topics and issues can be requested for future agenda items, but not discussed. So do we have any requests for those? Hearing none, I guess we can move on to the next item then, which is number 10, or the final item, which is comments from the committee. On the agenda is comments from the committee. This is for information only. And does anyone have any announcements they would like to make or any such comments?
I do. This is Robert Yabes. I found another Yabes in the committee. That's a good thing. This is my last meeting with this committee. I am retiring mid-January next year. And my replacement is Chase Woolman. The letter will be written by our intergov soon, but treat him nicely. He's a young guy. He's good. He's bright. And please give him additional training in the beginning before you let him loose with all those applications. I really appreciate the opportunity to serve on this committee. I think I'm the second longest one besides Dudley. Dudley has been here institutionalized with this committee, but I've known Matt for a long time as well. So thank you for the opportunity. And Wendy, I forgot, I didn't hear your promotion, but I wish you well. Congratulations. It is very well deserved. Again, this is Robert, and good luck in the next coming years. Thank you.
Chair, this is Wendy. Thank you, Robert, for all of your support over the years. Are you really sure you're retiring?
I was going to say that.
I am.
But
I am, unfortunately.
But we're grateful for all the years of support and you being chair and all of the energy that you put in and the fun. You always brought the fun too, and we really appreciate that. And we will definitely miss you. Also, I understand that Matt Dudley might have some congratulations on a new service that I saw officially launched.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yeah, we started our microtransit project this last Monday, both in the communities of Avondale and Goodyear. Matter of fact, if I think we were on the news this morning on Channel 10 over Goodyear. I think it was Councilmember Stipp gave a fantastic display of our We Ride vehicle. I think it'll be back on the news. I think they're redoing it at the Channel 10 5 p.m. Broadcast. But Robert, yes, why I may be the longest member, I think going on year 21 on that one. But for everybody that doesn't know, Robert was really kind of my first boss. Coming out as a urban planning student, going from year 3 to year 4, not knowing really what I wanted to do, but I think I did not want to do city planning. Ruth Yabis, is Robert's better half, said, hey, there's an internship over with the city of Tempe with my husband. So I never really thought about transit, and we never really all go into transit just to go into transit. But I think my experience there with that whole year really changed my perception of stuff. And honestly, without you, Robert, I probably would not be in transit today, because you just made it so enjoyable over there, City of Tempe, being your intern there for a year. So I'm definitely going to miss you, and I can't wait for the party, Robert. But
I don't think there's any party.
Oh, come on, Robert. All right, there's going to be a party for us then. We're going to go out.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Wendy.
And welcome to the other Yabas number 2, which I think there is a relation here. It's there's blood in that Yabas line there, and
yeah,
and also
that's good. That's a replacement that carries my last name. I was surprised.
There has to be a Yabas on the committee for sure.
We definitely need to have a Yabas. And Joe, surprise! Welcome from the city. Surprise! You'll find out that this committee is very, there's a lot of work that goes into this, but both Dee Dee and Wendy and City Phoenix and Mag have made it so much easier over the years to get this. But it's a very vital, important part of what we do here, and I think the stuff that we get for our nonprofits, it's really fantastic, especially when you see those vehicles out there on the street for our nonprofits. All right, enough of me.
Thank you.
Okay. That was some great discussion. Thanks, everybody, and announcements. I believe I was wrong, and we do have one more item, which is adjournment. So before we adjourn, I'd like to thank everyone for your time and for all your energy and efforts into this important program as we head into the 2023 application process. And again, welcome to the new members. Robert, we'll miss you. Sure, this is because there's no more cookies, because we don't meet in person anymore, primarily the retirement. But anyhow, you will be missed. So hopefully you can keep in touch with us somehow. Anyway, with all that said, this meeting is adjourned, I guess.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great day, everyone.
See you, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yabas number 2. I'll see you tonight.
You're gonna be in person? Are you gonna be in person or you going virtual?
I'm gonna be in person because I heard Buckeye's providing dinner, so I will be in person.
And cookies.
And cookies too. All right.
You have to uphold that tradition.
That's right.
All right.
Have a great day, everyone.